Welcome to the JS Self Care Mind, Body, and Soul podcast, a weekly conversation about self care, personal development, and all the small decisions we can make to become the best possible versions of ourselves. I am your host, Janelle. I am a social worker and a self care life coach based out of New York. For more information, visit my website at jsselfcare.org. I want to welcome my new listeners and I also want to welcome my returning listeners. If you can please share this episode because there is someone in this world who needs to listen to this episode. I also want to personally thank you for making the JS Self Care Mind, Body, and Soul podcast part of your weekly routine. I truly, truly appreciate you. Today's special guest is Ja from Just an Inspiration. Please let's welcome Ja.
My name is King Jai. I am a childhood trauma survivor, fatherlessness, poverty, emotional, mental, spiritual poverty survivor, violence survivor, prison survivor. Uh, I'm a spiritual millionaire, so attached and in tune to the God of my understanding, which is the foundation of my foundation. I'm a life speaker. I'm a light. I'm just a positive energy, just an inspiration.
And you are inspiration. When I heard you speaking on Clubhouse, because that's where you and I met, I felt like, wow, this man has been through a lot. And look where he's at now.
Right. And
You know,
that's a true blessing.
yes, it is. I get to tell you that I could have only assumed you stomped that devil out. And you
Most
said, not me,
most
not
most
me.
definitely protected. Had an insurance on my purpose. God definitely has kept his arms around me and kept me in a position to continue to be focused on the greater picture. Like I grew up in a culture of environment that was ruled by violence and fear, that normalized dysfunction. I grew up in the inner city. My father was in prison for the majority of my young life, raised by a single mother and amazingly strong great grandmother. And things was instilled in me that would allow me to know that I could make better choices. But at that time, I was filled with self-hatred and in an identity crisis. So I was attracted to the fast life. I was to the violence, and I seen nothing wrong with it. I legalized my way of criminal thinking, and that allowed me to have certain feelings. And those thoughts and those feelings allowed me to behave and act in a certain way. And those ways was definitely ungodly, definitely self-destructive and destructive towards other people. And because of my poor decision making, I took myself through hell. I took myself through hell, from being incarcerated, from being in shootouts, from being a drug dealer, a gangbanger. I
Can you elaborate more on, you said from being a drug dealer, is that where it started or gang banging? I asked because my brother was also into the life. He was murdered, though. He was murdered in Baltimore, Maryland. So that's why I asked, like, what did it start out from you? Knowing that your dad wasn't there or seeing your mom struggle and you felt the need to help her? What was it for you that made you turn to the streets?
It's just, first it's the curiosity, but you are attracted to what you're impressed by. And I was impressed by the cars and the big jewelry and the money that the hustlers carried and flashed. And because I was in a powerless situation, at least I thought I was in a powerless situation, uh, coming from, the broken home and being poor. Once I realized that you could get so much money off of something so small, which was crack cocaine, it became an addiction to me. It became something that I look forward to. And once I learned the game and how to hustle, I just, went to an extreme inside of it. And when it comes to dealing drugs, there's going to be violence. People are dealing with spiritual infections and spiritual poverty, not in the right state of mind, suffering from mental health, which I was definitely suffering from mental health as well.
What were you diagnosed with?
I wasn't diagnosed with anything, but
Oh,
just
okay.
just the fact that you were raised in a dysfunctional home by imperfect people in a dysfunctional society, it's it's almost impossible not to have mental challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you come from an environment where they normalize dysfunction and justify that dysfunction and the acts that come with it, there has to be a problem within your psyche. There has to be a problem within your spirit. There has to be a problem within your emotional development or being underdeveloped. So I didn't realize those things at the time. This came later through introspection of me studying my own thoughts and feelings.
Mm.
But and then being connected to spirituality my whole life, my mother, my great grandmother being greatly involved in church. uh I was introduced to the concept of God, but not having an intimate relationship or even desiring an intimate relationship with God allowed me to continue as a weapon of mass destruction. And I went through an incomprehensible demoralization to where I lost that self love, that self worth, the my values and morals, like everything was gone, and I became a addict to the money. I had an addiction to
Mm.
violence, and because we wasn't taught how to problem solve, I usually gravitated towards acts of violence in order to remove the situation or to control the situation. Never even realizing like that, we was bullying. Uh,
Mm.
I know that's something that is spoke on a lot nowadays, but we just thought it was, what I mean, a part of life. The older guys coercing us, intimidating us, punching on us, telling us, you can't be a man and cry. You can't be a man and show emotions. As soon as you show emotions, you're gonna get ate up. So it made us become desensitized. It made us suppress uh those healthy emotions that are normal and attributed to being human. Even, what I mean, just in the household, the dysfunctional household, they used to say that a child is to be seen and not heard. and,
Yes.
and
Uh,
any time that someone speaks that into you and over you, they take away the value of your voice, and that starts to affect whether or not you feel important as a human being. So that was a toxic energy that was always pushed around. So then when you suppress what you want to express, um, it starts to create resentment. It starts to create shame. And in response to that, I started acting out for attention. In school, I would act out for attention. I never had a problem with understanding and completing the work, but I wanted attention. And since I was an intelligent child, I would get done with my work first and then I would disrupt the class. And because of that, they wanted to put me in behavior classes, and they didn't address the problem. They never asked me what was wrong with me. They told me what was wrong with me. and they continued to feed me that and alienating me from the rest of my friends and the regular classrooms. So
Can I say something? So you were brought up, I was brought up to a child needs to be seen and not heard. But it sounds like the school system also trained you to be seen and not heard, seen with the behaviors, but you can't be asked what's wrong or what's going on in home life. Oh, no, you need to be placed in this class. Do you see where I'm going with this? It's like from one can't be, you can't talk at home, then you can't talk at school.
yeah, you just don't have no feeling of having a position. And that definitely reflects on how you look at yourself. So because so many people was making it seem like my life or my existence was a bad thing, that made me hate myself. People saying that, you're never gonna be anything. Your father, is nothing. You're gonna be dead before you 18. You'll be in prison before you 21. And then when you have you're in public schools in the inner city, you don't have the best books, you don't have teachers that are really passionate about what they're doing. They don't look at it as a ministry, they don't look at it as an opportunity to be a great example of leadership. They don't encourage expression. So
That is so true. I remember in grade school, I grew up in the inner city as well. I grew up in the South Bronx. And I'll never forget this teacher. It was in CES 63. She said, whether you guys learn or not, I am going to get paid. So keep on acting like a fool. I'm in my 40s and still that rings in my ear.
and we used to have a saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but the words you say won't hurt me. And then I
Yes,
realized that sticks and stones may break my bones, but the words you say can destroy my soul. And
absolutely.
I never really thought that it was something wrong with being a victim. So I always thought that I was a product of my environment. And years later, through a spiritual awakening, I realized that there was a victim stance by even declaring that over my life, saying that. And because there's a power of life and death in the tongue, it had an effect on me. And I played that position well. But when I realized that I'm not a product of my environment, but I'm a product of my response to my environment, that took me from
Mhm.
being a victim and allowed me to reclaim and take back my power. Because realistically thinking, for me, I had to admit, through brutal honesty, that there were people who lived next door, that lived around the corner, that lived down the street, that was up under the same circumstances and conditions, who never went to jail, who never committed a crime, who never used drugs, who never chose to be a part of a gang. So it was a choice. And sometimes when people go through traumas, it makes them overachievers instead of underachievers. And I chose the latter, um, thinking that that was the way to be. Not really so much trying to follow in my father's footsteps, but just being so infatuated with how easy it was with less stress. Because I watched my mama work 2 and 3 jobs and just be physically broke down, mentally, exhausted.
Mhm.
So I was like, man, I vowed that I'm never gonna be no sucker and be square and work, no job like for the white man. I'm not gonna do it. But at the same time of me saying that I was never gonna work for the white man, I was working for him by destroying my community, by being a weapon of mass destruction, by selling poison. That made me an Uncle Tom. And when I finally realized that I was working that agenda, that was heartfelt. Like I was tore up that.
You just gave me chills because I never looked at it like that. Um, Most definitely, like I said, my brother was murdered, but my father lived that lifestyle and he followed in his footsteps. So happened that my father was never murdered, but my brother was. And to know that you always hear that in the communities. I'm not working for nobody. I'm not being nobody's slave. but not knowing that you really are. You gave me chills, Job, because you said that you were destroying your community and you were doing exactly what they wanted to do themselves, but couldn't because they were in higher places. But you're saying that they sent us little colored folk to go out there. Go ahead, kill each other. Join the gangs because you got to be initiated. Join the gangs because the gang member gonna kill you.
And I mean, I had read a letter that was circulating. I think I had read it in the final call, and it was about the KKK thanking black men for destroying themselves and other black men, and that resonated inside of me, and it made me look at myself uh, in a way that was so honest that I began to cry. I began to feel shame. I began to feel regret, and I had desensitized myself and allowed the environment to desensitize me to the point where when I was able to feel those feelings, it gave me hope because it was rehumanizing. Um, but my childhood, I remember, uh, you know, one time I did something, and my mother, she had a boyfriend named Adam, and Adam was a big muscle built dude, and I was probably 4'11", 74 pounds, and I remember him coming over to our house, and he said, "You want to act like a man? You want to be a man? I'm gonna treat you like a man." And he pushed me into a room and slammed the door. And when I say that man slapped me probably 30 times, choking me, lifting me up off of my feet, and I knew my mother was on the other side of the door. My great grandmother, who I was her favorite, I was her love. She was at work, and I was just screaming for my mother. I was crying and screaming for my mother because this is a grown man hitting and abusing a child. And not only is he physically abusing me, he's mentally abusing me because he's calling me all of these different names, these different cuss words. And he's trying to intimidate me into a change. He's trying to beat me into a change. And I remember just sobbing once it was over with, and I said, "I hate you," thinking about my mother, because
Right.
you heard me crying out for you, and that established a hatred and a rebellion for authority. It detached me from having a respect for women. um it created a space for me to become more brutal, to become more violent. And because I couldn't express those things and I didn't know how to deal with releasing myself from that energy, I carried that stuff for years, like for years. And it just was cancerous to my mind and to my emotions and to my spirit, even to my social life, to my social self. And I hurt a lot of people, and if you chose to love me, I was going to torture you in one way or another. If it was making you worry, because I'm absent, and that I'm in this street life, and you worried about if somebody's going to call you 3 o'clock in the morning and say, "Hey, I hate to call you and give you this bad news, but your son got his brains blowed out, or your
Mhm.
son blew somebody's brains out." Um, you trying to love me, it would be so difficult to do because I didn't love myself, didn't feel worthy of love, because the people who were my moral compasses, and being faulty moral compass, uh their guidance as a GPS to me developing as a child allowed me to go in all the dysfunctional ways that one could go. So I end up going to like juvenile facilities, group homes, and then one time when I had got out of group home, I was serving this woman, what I mean, that
Mhm.
was, she was a drug abuser, what we call
Right.
fiends. And she said, I want to tell you something. And I said, what you want to tell me? And she said, you know, your mama told them people, she told them white folks to put you in that group home. And that just made me just hate my mother so
Wow.
much. Like, how could you give up on me
Hmm.
when I'm supposed to be so precious to you? So I didn't trust a woman saying that she loved me or that she cared for me, because if my mother, who carried me in her womb for 9 months and was responsible for my life, didn't care about me, it's no way possible that I'm gonna believe that you care for me. So I would be disrespectful, verbally.
You were verbally disrespectful to women because you were verbally abused.
r-
I mean, you were physically abused by your mom's boyfriend, but her nonverbals, when she didn't help you in that room, when her boyfriend decided to beat the crap out of you, those were nonverbals, but you were disrespectful to women because that's what you were taught.
most definitely seen that poor example, even from the pimps, the hustlers. They had so many different women that they was controlling, and that was something that I strive for. Like, I'm gonna be able to have the gift of gab, and I'm gonna be able to talk a woman into whatever position that I want her to be in, because I'm the man. I'm the king. um I got the power. So through all of these different conflicting things and energy, and it took me into a self-made hell where
Mm.
I suffered so much mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, which even affected me physically. My body like broke out with these hives, and it was because all of this toxicity in me, it's this toxic energy in me, it began to manifest through my body, and I didn't understand it. So I had a poor self-image for a great period of time. So then you fast forward, and I go to prison. And I go to prison because
What year was this? From all the self destruction, what year did you go to prison?
I end up going to prison the first time in 1994. And because I was surrounded by so many people I knew, it didn't feel like a punishment. It was just a place, that had me away from home, but I was able to feel comfortable. So I didn't
Mhm.
learn anything. And when I got released, I returned right back to the same mentality, to doing the same things, but just on a different level, because my comprehension had changed. My ability to see things had changed. So I went right back to it. And the violence didn't stop. The poor thinking didn't stop. The poor self-image was covered up by designer clothes, because I got some money. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with me. I'm winning.
Right.
And that was a lie. And I still was refusing to conform to decency, and being concerned about humanity. I wasn't human. I was acting out as a demon, as a shell of a person. I was a demon. So I end up shooting someone 1998, uh at a Thanksgiving dinner. I had found out that he was testifying against my so-called friends.
Mm-hmm.
And the rules of the street is, you don't snitch. And
That's right.
in my mind, he needed to be dealt with. He needed to be removed. So I went, and finally found him. I had been looking for him for like 2 weeks, and I found him. He had been right up under my nose the whole time, and somebody went and delivered a pizza to the house. And they called me and was like, dude's over here. He'd been over here the whole time. So I went over there, and he was kind of standoffish at first. And I played the part, because when you are part of the street life, you get good and effective with wearing a mask, with being a
Mm-hmm.
manipulator. And that's what I did. And I used the power of my words to make him feel comfortable. And he allowed me to come into his home. So he had asked me, have I ate? And I was like, nah, I haven't ate. And he was like, man, I fix you something. So he fixed the plate, and we sitting down, and he had fixed another plate for himself. And you could hear people all throughout the house, but most the people in the house, I guess, was downstairs in the basement. And I ate, we kind of talked a little bit, and then I said, man, well, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go see somebody else. So as we was walking to the door, I said, damn, I said, I forgot. I gotta give you something. And I turned around, and I had the gun already out in front of me, which he didn't see. And I just started shooting him. And I walked out. And eventually, because he didn't die, I guess he thought he was gonna die. So he told his family, as they surrounded him, waiting on the EMS to arrive, that I was the one who had did it. And didn't none of those people know me. But when they said the name to his brother, his older brother, he knew exactly who I was, and he knew I was directly connected to the people he was testifying against. So he didn't die, and they end up charging me.
Mm.
So I fought the case for a period of time, but they end up revoking my other sentence because it was a violation. And then, as a convicted felon, not supposed to have a gun. And I end up going back to prison. So I end up doing 11 flat years in prison.
Wow.
And I had a spiritual awakening inside of that experience.
What time of the day was it during your spiritual awakening? Because I had mine too. It was weird. It was at a play when something came through me. Do you know what time of the day it was?
I don't remember exactly
The
the time of
like.
day. I just know it came over me,
Mm-hmm.
and it sat in me and wouldn't allow me to move from accountability.
Wow.
So what I end up doing, I started to because I've never been a, a person without knowledge. I've always been intelligent, and I've always had common sense. So it wasn't like I was just, a street dude, and I didn't have nothing, in my mind that had value. And then I still always had a connection to God. I just would always want to use God when it was favorable for me, when I was in those circumstances and conditions where I felt like I needed God.
Mm-hmm.
I end up because changing in prison is not normal. Most people that go to prison are not focused on changing, and I became focused on changing. So I took something that was abnormal and made it normal. So I would write different papers because I was always good with words and structuring those words, that expression. I started getting them typed up and printed out, and I would pass them around on the prison yard, teaching people new words, challenging their thoughts. And the administration found out about it, and they put me in the hole, in segregation. They said I was trying to overthrow the system, and it made me realize that I was doing something right to get
Mm-hmm.
response, that type of attention. Well, anyway, they end up.
Because they didn't want you to educate your brothers and sisters. You know why? Because then if you start educating them, then you change the atmosphere of what's going on in the system. So by you educating them, they knew they had to put you in a place where you couldn't do your work.
So I went through being in segregation, and it just gave me more time to really deeply reflect and to write it out and to look at it outside of my head. But I tell you, when God has a purpose for you, when God has a purpose that needs to be successful, he'll make sure that there's no stops. So the administration end up allowing me to start a class for the people who were willing to get help. So I started teaching, behavior modification class. I started writing a book, end up writing two different books. One was a poetry book, something like a poetry book called All the Things a Woman Wishes a Man Would Say. And I just felt like that book was going to be me making amends with all the women that I had hurt. It was a part of me making amends. And then I wrote another book that I titled Newfound Freedom, which was like a self-help manual, but it was really for me because I needed some healthy boundaries and points of reference, things that I could look at to keep myself in position. So I started teaching these behavior modification classes, and they was just coming up with different things that was being used at other institutions around the world.
Mm-hmm.
In prisons, and they said, we'll bring somebody in to train you, or if you don't need the training, we'll allow this to happen. And
Wow.
I started doing just that. So every prison that I went to in the state of Kentucky, that's what I was known for. But because of my reputation, because of the things that I had did in my past, people just thought it was game. People thought that, I was being fake and just in it to fool the administration, just trying to get out, giving some, evidence for the parole board to use to say, hey, he's been reformed. He's repented and made a different choice about where he wants his life to be and what he wants to be a part of. But it was real. And I remember one day I was sitting on my bunk and I said, man, what is it feeling? It just felt like I was high. And I realized that I was at peace. And I remember my great grandmother always saying, peace be still. And I said, I'm not stressing about anything. Like I'm in the right position. I'm in the right state of mind. I'm building, I'm removing things that are no good for me, in my mind, in my spirit, and in my emotions. And I love where I'm at, even in a place of chaos. Um, in a place filled with people that are filled with self-hatred, uh, I'm at peace, and I wanted to add on to that peace. I wanted to challenge myself more, so I stopped eating meat for like 6 months. I just was going to eat fruit and vegetables, and I felt like if I could use that discipline and self-control, that when I got out and was released from prison, I could control myself from not getting back into the streets. And I was successful at doing just that. I stopped eating meat for 6 months, and it gave me a great foundation to stand on. It was very empowering. It was very liberating because I realized that we do have control over our thoughts. We do have control over our feelings. We do have control over our behaviors. We can break cycles. We can overcome childhood traumas. So I just was focused on doing that. And when I finally was released, I felt great about myself. And also I had went to vocational school. So I became electrician, a residential construction electrician. So I did that because I felt like that would replace the game, that would replace the street. So if nothing else works, I know I can fall back on being an electrician. So I came home and I just wanted to involve myself in the community and, rectifying the situations, and help with the damage that I caused to, make change with that. And my spirituality, had got, even stronger and effective. And I just had a personal relationship with God, and I just knew that I was all right. So, my affiliations with people from the past, from my past, like I knew that I had to shake them. They couldn't be a part of the picture, or else I would jeopardize everything that I had sacrificed and compromised and what I had suffered through. So,
Which was 11 years of your life.
that I couldn't get back. And I knew they didn't have any type of problem, reservation about putting me back in the belly of the beast inside of that concrete coffin. So I was determined not to run away from home again. I was determined to be free and free indeed. So I started doing the things that I was supposed to do. You know, a lot of times guys be in prison, they have structure because their time is governed by somebody else. You know what I mean? The time you
Mm-hmm.
can be on the yard, what you can do. So they develop a structure, you know, working out, go play basketball, get in some kind of school program, get in some type of a mental health program to get certificates so that they can impress the parole board. But when guys get out of prison, they don't keep that same structure because nobody's standing over them. Nobody's yelling through a megaphone over a speaker and telling you what you need to do. So a lot of guys end up relapsing and becoming a part of the recidivism rate because they forget to keep that routine and to keep themselves in check, as they did when they was on the prison yard. You know, it's too much freedom. Everybody's not ready for the responsibility of that freedom. And because you haven't worked on your mind, because you haven't worked on your spirit, if you haven't worked on your emotions, um you're just walking around muscled up, you know, looking like a pretty mess.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what I mean, they don't know how to function. They start panicking and they just return back to what they know. You know, the job thing is not making sense. You want me to work for a whole week and barely make, you know, $400 or $500, and I can sell one thing in less than a minute and make $1,000. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it's easy for a person to relapse and go back into that same mentality, especially when you haven't really done anything to fortify your inner strength, that you even know about your inner strength. So I've been free from the system and I love it, you know what I mean, because I realized my power, you know what I mean, that I had a choice. And most people make themselves feel hopeless because they feel like they don't have power, but our power is in our choices. So as long as you have a choice, long as you have choices, you have power, and you have the power to choose how you respond to whatever the circumstances and conditions are that you're facing. So just knowing that I have power and I'm not willing to surrender that power and allow myself to think and feel weak or to be treated as such, I always stay aligned with knowing that I have a choice.
Mm. We all have choices. It's about, making the choice and doing the work, because we could get easily sucked in. But Jod, the picture you sent me, it's a picture of you in the hospital. What happened to you?
So I I had started doing things that would replace me having to depend on the streets to get money. So I started doing like a roadside assistance, got a pop a lock kit to where, you know, you lock your keys in your car. I would
Mm-hmm.
I would assist you in getting your keys back. I started cooking and I was selling food out of my car. Out cooking in my home and I sell that in my car. And because my social media has so many people following me, that was a good place for free marketing and free product placement. So I was selling the food, and selling the food was taking me different places, but I was carrying a gun because I knew that people, even though I had changed, other people haven't changed, and people hold your past against you. And then I
Absolutely.
remembering one day that, you know, I was like, man, if you say you got faith in God and you have a real certainty in what God is and what God has done for you, you don't need to pack a gun because you're practicing for a bus. You get pulled over by the police, you're going back to prison. And now the federal system is a part of when a convicted felon gets caught with a gun in Kentucky. So that would mean that you're going to be gone for a very long time. And I didn't think it was worth it, but because I know I have a real faith in God, I stopped carrying the gun, and I would
Mm-hmm.
go anywhere without reservation to deliver this food. So by me delivering the food, it brought me into contact with all kind of different people, even people from my past that I haven't seen. So I ended up getting back in contact with a guy that was who I felt was very close to me, and he would have me come to his neighborhood and sell the food to all of the people around him. He would make them support me, and
Right.
they loved the food. So me and him went from just having the interaction about the food to where we hang out, or where we talking on the phone, or where I come over his house, and he was still in the streets. And I should have stopped that, but I'm feeling like I'm not into what he's into. He know I'm not into what he's into. He'll keep that away from me because a real friend is supposed to put a protection on you and not subject you to certain things. So uh, we was in contact again probably for like 4 or 5 months, and we was doing different things, take trips together, going concerts together, and I just felt like that brotherhood was solid, and he respected my mind. Some people I would go around, they would try to entice me to take part in the streets again because they had a plug and it was cheap and I can make plenty of money, and
Mm-hmm.
doing selling food that ain't gonna get you rich, just negative stuff. But I would always rebuke it because I knew that God had me. So something ended up happening with this guy that I started sharing this brotherhood with. At least I thought it was, to where his girlfriend got robbed, and I was on my way home on the highway, and he called me and he was like, man, they just robbed my girl. And she had a boutique. And I started thinking as I'm driving, like, she's not making that much money in the boutique to where somebody would want to rob her. And then he's calling me about it. So I had to do with his street ties and drug money. And I was like, well, where you at? He said, man, I need you to go meet her. She got the kids with her. So I end up turning around on the highway and I go and I meet her. She's explaining to me what's going on, and we we left to go to the house. So when we get to the house, him and another gentleman is at the house, and they trying to figure out who it was. She's giving the playback of what happened and what she remember about what they look like. So the next, we end up leaving. Uh, all three of the men, we end up leaving and going separate ways. So the next day, he called me, and I was with my girlfriend at the time, and he said, man, I need to holler at you. And I was like, okay. I was like, you can do it. I said, where you at? He said, who you with? And I said, I'm with my girl. And he said, man, I'll just catch you later. He said, I'm going to go holler at my cousin. So I said, all right. So we get off the phone, and she could hear it because it was on the speaker in the car. And she said, "You think you got something to do with that?" I said, "No, never in a million years. Why would my brother think it of me? Like I wouldn't even never have phantom thought to bring any type of harm or discomfort to him and his family, more or less manifested and bringing into a physical reality." And I said, "But he asked me who I was with. Don't no man ask me who I'm with." And that was really a warning, but I
Mm.
felt because I knew that I hadn't did anything and that my life was changing, I was in a different position. I downplayed it, but it's always a warning before destruction. So I went on throughout the day. I ended up dropping her off, and I said, "Man, I'm gonna go down here and holler at this cat, see what's on his mind." So as I'm ready to get off the highway, uh, close to his neighborhood, he called me. It's how the devil is. He knows exactly
Mm-hmm.
what's necessary with the plot. So he said, man, where you at? I said, I'm ready to get off the exit right here on Taylor. I'm not far from you. And he said, yeah, I'm in the hood. He said, come on, pull up. I didn't sense nothing in his voice. He was talking the same way that he always talked. And
Ways talk to you.
I said, all right, I'll be here in 1 minute. And he said, who you with? I said, I ain't with nobody. I'm by myself. And he said, all right. He said, I'm right here. So I hung up. And that stood out again, but it didn't have no way of feeling like I should be alarmed. I was just like, maybe he's just paranoid because of what happened, and he's trying to make sure, like just ain't no anybody around to hear what he's saying or to know
Right.
where he's at, because he don't know where it came from and what it's about. So I downplayed it again. That was my second warning before destruction. And I pulled up a minute later. I seen his truck, another guy's car that I knew, and the guy that ended up shooting me, his car was parked right there. And I sat in the car listening to this song for probably like 2 minutes, and I didn't see him come out, which wasn't against what's the norm, but it
But
was enough time for me to say, if he really wanted to talk to me, that as soon as he seen me pull up, he would be out here. But I ended up getting out of the car, and I was back 2 apartment buildings. I walked into the first apartment building hallway, and these are ran down apartments. It's a trap. So I walked to the first apartment to my left, and there was a little girl sitting on the steps, and I asked her, had she seen him? And she was like, who is that? And I was like, you probably don't know him. He ain't famous. I said, well, have a blessed evening. So I come out, and I walk between the two apartment buildings thinking that maybe they was out on the porch, because sometimes they would be in the hallway when the narcs and police would be riding through. They would duck and hide in the hallway. So I walked between the two buildings, and wasn't nobody on the porch. Like, but it was some older men across the street that was talking and laughing and drinking. So as I'm coming back between the apartments, like headed towards the direction of my car, this guy popped out. And it wasn't really a cold day, but it wasn't warm. So we had on hoodies. Yeah, I didn't actually have my hoodie on, but that's what kind of, clothes we had on. So he had his hands in the pouch of his hoodie, and he was like, who you looking for? I said, I'm looking for little bro. Where he at? He said, oh, he's upstairs. He's in a dude's house. So I knew he was where, they get their stuff and break it down, pick it up.
uh-huh.
And he turned right around. So I'm walking behind him, and he went in the back door of the apartments. And I went right in, what I mean? Thinking like, this is the normal, flow of things. Don't nothing seem weird. And when we got in the hallway, and the hallway is probably, if you stretched your arms out, that's how wide the hallway is. And then it's probably, 5 feet long. So he was standing in the corner of it, and right where he was standing at, the steps was right in front of him. It was like 6 steps. And the person whose apartment they would normally be in, once you got to the top of those 6 steps, he lived right there to your left. Like the apartment was right there. And I stood by the door, and we kind of talking, but I really don't know him. I just served him and his daughter some food probably 2 days before that, but I really don't know him. So my conversation really is not going anywhere. So he seen that I was, like getting impatient. He said, man, he's up there in physics. And he wanted me to go up in steps. So he put the back of my head off, but I didn't move uh, because I wasn't there for what I believed he was there for. And his hands being in his pouch, I just thought he had his money. He was going to re-up, get the drugs, and go about his way. So I didn't move when he said that. And probably like a minute or two later, I just said to him, what I mean, me being older than him, I just said, little bro, man, go get him. And he said, all right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was standing in front of the steps. As he was going up the steps, my chest was facing the steps, but I turned my body sideways to where my heart was closer to the steps. And it's only 6 steps. So when he got to the third step, I seen him reaching, and he turned around, and he had a gun in his hand. Well, automatically I know that you're not, here to rob me, because I'm not in the streets getting no money. I'm selling food out of my car. And I knew that this was a hit, but what I realized, and what was so heartbreaking to me, uh is that the person who I'm here to meet is nowhere in sight. So I knew that I had been set up by my so-called friend, a person I thought was my
Right.
brother. So him being on the third step, he was up. So at an angle, he shot down, and the first bullet hit me on my side, a half an inch away from my heart. And
Wow.
he, when he shot me the first time, I
Mm-hmm.
just looked at him. I said, "Damn!" I said, "Damn, bro, you tripping?" Like it. It was. I was shocked, but I was disgusted, but I was shocked. Like, if you knew who I was, like, if you knew who I was, the life, if you knew who I was, the people, like, if you knew what I was capable of in these streets, like, would you even be doing this? Like, you committed yourself to something that you can't turn around from. So he shot me again, and I end up going for the door. Like, I don't know if the gun jam, but I just seen that he wasn't like he didn't keep on shooting. And I went for the door. And as I went for the door, I guess he got the gun right. He shot me again. Well, he shot me point blank range with RIP bullets. If you Google those bullets, you will understand the magnitude of what kind of miracle I am through God, because those bullets are advertised as the last round you will ever need. They are supposed to cause instant death because they make you bleed out so fast. They have like 9 spikes at the top of the bullet. They made out of copper instead of lead, so they're faster. But these 9 spikes break off and go individually 6 inches wide, 17 inches forward, and then they come back to the heat and explode. So because he had shot me from the third step, he was above me. All of those bullets blew up in my stomach. So I took off running, through the buildings. I didn't go for my car. I took off running through the building. So I ran past the men that was standing out there drinking and talking. And I'm sure that they paid attention to me because they probably heard the shots, and then they probably seen the blood, which I hadn't looked down. So as I was running, I reached into the pouch of my hoodie, and I called my girlfriend at the time, and I said, "Hey, this dude, they just lined me up. They just try to kill me." And I said, "But I'm not gonna die. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to
Wow.
die." I said it 3 times, and I said it so calm that she thought I was playing, and she hung up. So as I'm running, it's not my neighborhood, but I run around this building, and I realize I'm really running into a dead end. And I don't know anybody that lives out here in these ran down apartments. So I'm standing behind this building, and I said, "Okay, I'm not gonna go in the first building. I'm gonna go into the second building." So when I went to move to go towards the second building, I collapsed. And when I collapsed, I said, "Get up." And I pushed myself back up. And when I got up, I could see diagonally through the space in between the two buildings. He was standing on the side of the building where he had just shot me with the gun on his side, trying to figure out where I went. I guess he just knew that I was dead, that I had fell out running or something. But I made it to a second building, and there's 2 apartments downstairs, there's 2 apartments upstairs. So I went to the first apartment to my left. I knocked on the door, nobody answered the door. I knocked on the other door, nobody answered the door. Well, in this particular apartment building, it was probably like 16 steps. So as I'm going up the steps trying to get somebody to respond, to open the door and respond, I collapsed on the steps. I was so dehydrated and my body was overheated. And so I crawled up the steps, and I went to my left, and I started knocking on the door. I guess the woman looked out of the pee hole and didn't see me, but heard the consistency of the knock. She opened the door, and I said, "Listen," I said, "I've been shot." I said, "I need you to call 911, but I need you to let me in." I said, "But I know nobody wants somebody to die in the house, but I'm not going to die. So you don't have to worry about that." So I just, safely assumed that she was going to do such. So I started crawling to come into her space, and she put her foot at the bottom of the door and put her hands at the top of the door and pushed it so hard and forced me out. So once again, I was disgusted and heartbroken, and as I'm ready to crawl to the last door, because I know I physically can't make it back down those steps. I just said, God, I know that you're not gonna let me die. I know that you haven't brought me through everything that you brought me through to let me die in a ran down, dirty, pee smelling apartment building. I know that you're not gonna let me die. And I crawled to the door, my last option, and I started knocking on it. And I guess she looked out the pee hole and didn't see me, but heard the consistency of the knock. She opened the door, seen me on the ground. I said, listen, I just got shot. I don't know if this cat's going to try to come back and finish me off. I said, but I need you to let me in and just call 911 so I can get first responder to get some help because I've been shot. I said, but I'm not going to die. I know that I'm not going to die. And she said, come on. And I crawled in there. And when I crawled in there, I was so dehydrated and so out of breath. My body was heated up. I turned over. I flipped over on my back. And she seen, that I had blood everywhere, but I had never looked down and paid attention to it. So she had locked the door. She set the baby down. She was holding, got off the phone with the person she was on, called 911. So as she's talking to them and they're asking a question, she's trying to communicate to me and I'm responding. I said, do you have some ice? And she said, yeah, I got some ice. I said, would you just fix me some ice water, please? I said, if you could just fix me that ice water, I feel so much better because I felt like that ice water was going to cool me down and was going to take me from being dehydrated. Well, by the time she got the ice into the cup and put water into the cup, it was beating all on the door. And it was the police, the fire department, and the EM workers. So
Mm.
they came in, they're trying to assess the damage. They, lift me up a little bit to look at pull my shirt, cut stuff off of me, and was like, it's not through and through. The bullets didn't come out. And they said, but he's losing a lot of blood. So one of the guys said, I don't think he's gonna make it. He said, I don't think he's gonna make it. And I looked over in that direction because I didn't know exactly which one it said. I said, I'm not gonna die. And I just was so calm. I said, I'm not gonna die. So they trying to put me on this wood board and lift me up to get me outside where they can put me on the stretcher. Well, when they lifted me up, when I had flipped over, when I first crawled into the apartment, my phone must have fell out of my pouch. And I touched myself because they had tore my clothes up. I said, where's my phone? As they was about to lift me up. And the detective standing to my right said, oh, it's right here. And he went to bend down to pick it up. So I went to reach for it. So it was like a small tussle. Well, the phone was facing me as he got a hold of it. It called back the last number that I had called, which was my girlfriend. And but it FaceTimed her. And she seen me, lay there shot up, bleeding out. And she just lost her mind. Well, anyway, they get me in the ambulance. They get me to the hospital. Supposed to be a 2.5 hour surgery. End up being a 5.5 hour surgery. I lost so much blood they had to stop operating on me. Well, the chief surgeon had been a surgeon for 35 years. He had to run and go figure out what those bullets were. He had never seen them, a day in his life. And they put me in a coma. They put me in a coma, put me on a ventilator, and they wanted my blood count to go up. They was talking about transfusion, but they came back and operated on me on the third day. And I remember when I woke up, my throat was like raw, and I was writing down stuff on paper, talking to my family that was around me. And I said, "What is this?" And they said, "You on a ventilator." And I said, man, tell them to take this out. I can breathe on my own. It's hurting. And they went
Mm.
and got the nurse. Nurse came and read the paper, and she took off running. She come back with the surgeon. Surgeon look, and he said, man, he said, we ready to take it out. So they end up rushing me down. They took it out, and he came back up. He said, man, he said, I'm so glad that you're here. He said, because I had no clue of what was going on with you. He said, but I tell you something that I've never seen. He said, but I seen it in you. He said, your heart is so strong. He said, your heart is it's the strongest heart I ever seen in my life. He said, your heart beats so strong. And I just looked at him because I knew that it was God. I knew that it was
Mm-hmm.
nothing but God. I was in the hospital 30 days, lost 35 pounds, stomach ended up exploding. They had me open, wide open, as you see on that picture. And I wasn't eating, so I lost 35 pounds. And the doctors and nurses would come in every day and they would say, we don't understand how your body has suffered all the trauma that it suffered, and you're not taking no pain medication. That's not possible. How are you not taking any pain medication? And they didn't understand that before that pain even had a chance to settle in me to where I felt it, God has scooped it out of me. They said that I would never walk. They said that I wouldn't be able to stand upright. They said I would wear a colostomy bag for the rest of my life. They said so many things, and all of those things was defied. But even in the midst of that fight, I was still on social media sending out positive inspiration.
Ja, you were meant to
Most
be here. You do know that. You were meant to be here because the story that you just told us, nobody could survive that
Now
I
those
know of.
bullets, those you gotta Google those RIP, rapidly
I
invasive
will.
projectile. They are advertised as the last round you will need, and they are supposed to make you instantly bleed out. That's they cause irreparable damage. So if you know the definition of irreparable, they're saying that it's humanly impossible for that damage to be fixed. And I thank God for the wisdom that he gave to the surgeon, and the anointing that he put in his hands to save my life. But yeah, so
So you've been through so much, Ja. What do you do now? I know I want you to tell us about your clubhouse room because I know a lot of people are on Clubhouse and the things that you do now because your life was preserved to be here to do something. And I know you know that's something
yeah,
because you're
so
doing
my
it.
name is Jai, and it's spelled Jai, which some years ago in prison, when I was pouring into a guy after I got finished talking to him, he said Jai, Jai, just an inspiration. And I said, man, you don't know what you said when you told me. I said, I'm gonna run with that. I said, because it's a lot to it. And I know that God used you to speak that in me and over me. So now uh, my mission, my love, my passion, my focus is to pour life into people, to challenge people to think about what they're thinking about, to be able to make the right choices for the right reasons, building people up, showing people where to find their greatest strength and how to be effective with it. So as you mentioned, I'm on Clubhouse. As One Shot at Love is my username, but I have a club. God bless me with a club. I prayed for my own club and it manifested. And it's called Just an Inspiration. And it's a safe place that I wanted to create to be able to further reach people, no matter if they're at their lowest point or if they're at their highest, but be able to give them that positive reinforcement, a place to vent, a place to get advice, just to be healthy. And that room is always filled with so much resilience, so much resilience. It's mind blowing to me, because I know that it's all orchestrated and controlled through God's power. So every day I do self-protecting behaviors, from positive affirmations, from eating differently. I haven't ate pork in 30 years. I stopped eating red meat. Um, I stretch. A lot of people don't stretch and they wonder why that tension, that energy gets knotted up inside of them. I take care of my body but I take care of my mind and my emotions in the same way with the same dedication. Um, Before COVID, I was going to community centers, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, churches, different places, speaking, just inspiring people to know that it's not what lies behind us or what lies before us. Uh, you know what I mean? Because those things are small matters, but it's what lies within us. So to make people more conscious of what they allow to enter them and what lives inside of their minds and their emotions and spirit is something that I'm dedicated to, and I do it. I do it every day.
So I know that you're not in the schools or in in the churches. Are you available if like a mother who was just like your mother, a single mother, if a mother or a father just struggling with their son or daughter, because it's just not males who sell drugs and who get into this life, also females get into this life as well, would they be able to contact you to get guidance and coaching and, anything that you can help the community, the outside communities? Because right now we're in a world where we're stuck in the house
Yeah.
because of COVID.
Like on my on Clubhouse, you know what I mean, I have my personal phone number listed on my profile, which most people don't have that, but I have it available because I don't want someone to be in a battle and think that they don't have anyone that they can talk to. So I want to be able to rule that out and let people know that no matter what, you at least have one person that you can talk to, that you can vent to, that you can get advice from, that will pray with you, that'll pray over you. So I'm definitely available. I'm on Clubhouse. I'm on Instagram, One Shot at Love. I'm on Facebook, Jalashawn Wilson. I'm on Twitter, Roos Love. Like, I make myself available, and people definitely use that. Like last night, it was 7 people that text me telling me, that they was in situations and they needed to be saved, they needed to be talked to, they needed to be reinforced, and I do that, willingly. I know that it's going to eventually get out of control because I'm only one person. So I'm in process of developing my website, justininspiration.com, so that people can set times to be able to speak with me and receive that love offering.
Absolutely. And if you don't mind, with your permission, I'm going to also put your phone number in these show notes so that anyone struggling can
Yeah,
contact you. Is that
most
okay?
definitely. They
So I want to thank you for sharing your journey, because when I call journey to self-care, it's anyone on this journey. But what I've realized on my journey, that the journey is never ending. We're learning new things, and now we're teaching what we're learning. And what I learned is we teach what we most need to learn. That's why we're teachers. And we're sharing the good word with people and letting them know that we've been someplace, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We've been down rabbit holes, but we dug ourselves out without someone coming to rescue us. We did it, and now we
And the
want you to
thing,
do it.
my perspective about it is that I didn't suffer for me. I suffer for someone else being able to pay forward. A lot of people personalize what they're going through, but it's not supposed to be looked at as that way. What you're suffering through, the wisdom you're gonna gain, the strength you're gonna gain, you're gonna run into someone or many people who need that advice, who need that wisdom, who needs to use your strength. So I know that all my suffering has been justified for the glory of God. And a lot of times people, they want things to not have happened. But if they took back the pain they caused you, if they took back the pain they caused you, that would also remove the strength that you gained.
So True. I always say lessons are blessings because you will get something out of it. Just pay attention. You're going to learn something. You are going to learn something through your struggles, and you're going to be able to help somebody that you don't even know that just needs the word. So I want to thank you for coming on this podcast, and also looking forward to you on Instagram and Facebook tomorrow at 8:30 p.m.
Thank you so
Eastern.
much. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Absolutely. Have a great day
You do
on
the same.
purpose,
Stay
Ja.
blessed, sister. Thank you so much.
While I hope you love listening to and learning from this podcast, it is not meant to substitute for mental health treatment. Schedule a coaching session with me, your self care life coach, Janelle. If mental health treatment is needed, please don't hesitate to contact a therapist in your area. Self care is important and necessary. Take care of you and continue to put you first no matter what. If anything in this podcast resonated with you and you want to continue the conversation, please don't hesitate to contact me, Janelle, at jsselfcare.org. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and share. For daily doses of self care affirmations and notes to self, make sure you join the JS Self Care social media tribe on most social media platforms. If you would like to further the conversation with Ja from Just an Inspiration, his contact information will be at the end of the show notes. Thank you for listening and have an amazing day or night on purpose.